Hey guys, welcome to today's video where we're going to be discussing the MVP odds for the rest of the season. Before we get started, please drop a like and a sub. It really helps my channel grow and I'd really appreciate it too. And with that said, let's dive into the video and I hope you enjoy. So I am going to be talking about three players today that I think have a shot at the MVP award. One of them is going to be Patrick Mahomes. Let's start with Patrick Mahomes. He's currently got a 93.0 PFF player grade. He ranks number one in passing yards with over 4,200 passing yards, as well as number two in air yards. That's 2,346 air yards. Number two in money throws on the dime. And although he has last game, obviously he had those 3 interceptions last game against Miami. He only has 5 interceptions on the year. Plus, he ranks number 3 in passing touchdowns with 33 passing touchdowns. He ranks number 2 in yards per attempt. This guy is being very efficient with the football, and he's got the weapons that is allowing him to be really efficient too. I mean, as I said, number 2 in yards per attempt, number 2 in adjusted yards per attempt, also number 2 in total QBR. So this guy's getting the job done, and I think that we know that. But also another big thing about being an MVP kind of player is how is your team doing? The Chiefs have been on a tear. They've only lost 1 game all season, and Mahomes is a big reason for that. I mean, if you look at the big games he's had, he has shown up. Last week against Miami was a big test for him. I mean, that was a close game down to the wire, but he threw for 393 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Yes, the 3 interceptions aren't ideal, but when you throw for over 390 yards and 2 touchdowns, and you're still getting the job done by throwing 3 interceptions, I mean, you can see he's a special talent and a special kind of player. I don't think there's any doubt that Mahomes deserves the MVP award. I mean, he has been consistently awesome throughout the year, consistently carried this Chiefs team on his back, and he's found some really good weapons with Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, who he has helped achieve stardom. I mean, a big thing about being an MVP is you make your team better, and you make the players around you better, and that's something that Patrick Mahomes definitely does. He's going to be the face of the NFL for the next 10, 15 years, so really watch out for Patrick Mahomes as one of those guys in the MVP conversation. I mean, do I think he'll win it? That's still up for debate. I mean, last game against Miami was not his best game, and that could have taken him out of the MVP running. I mean, throwing 3 interceptions in a game in an MVP season is a little questionable, but I mean, he still got the win in that game, still threw for over 70% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 393 yards, and I mean, a few weeks ago against Tampa, this guy threw for 462 yards and 3 touchdowns. Those are ludicrous stats. You just have to understand that. But he makes his team better. He's going to have this team playing and competing for another ring. So really watch out for Patrick Mahomes as one of those guys that is in the MVP conversation. Another guy that I want to talk about is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is turning back the clock at age 37. He's got this Green Bay team playing very good football. Obviously, won last week in Detroit, winning their division. So, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is playing as good as anybody in football this year. So, number 12 in attempts, okay, number 6 in red zone attempts, number 2 in deep attempts. This guy's throwing the football very far and very accurate. Number 4 in air yards. He's also number 4 in passing yards with over 3,600 passing yards. Number 12 in air yards. Number 7 in money throws. Those are throws on the dime. And he's number 1 in passing touchdowns with 39 touchdowns. Also, Rodgers has a 94.9 PFF player grade, and he's on pace to finish the year with over 4,500 yards passing and 48 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. This is Rodgers' also 5th season with at least 40 touchdowns accounted for. That's throwing and running. And no player in NFL history has more than 4 seasons with those stats. So you can see that Rodgers is a special player, and he is fitting right in with this Matt LaFleur offense. He's really got it going in his 2nd year there. The run game's opened up, and that's really allowed them to use Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who has had a big year. Davante Adams has had a huge year. Robert Tonyan, finally a tight end that Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers has really used and unlocked. So Rodgers is throwing the ball as consistently and as solidly as anyone in the NFL. Yeah, he's had a few down games. I mean, that game against Tampa Bay earlier in the year was not his finest by any means, but I mean, this guy, he's playing at an elite level. He's playing among the best quarterbacks in the league, and him and Mahomes, I'd say, are neck and neck for that MVP battle. As I said, that game against Tampa earlier in the season, this guy threw for 160 yards and 2 interceptions. So if we want to talk about Mahomes' bad games, we can also talk about Rodgers having some bad games. But at the end of the day, I think Rodgers is a really good bet for this MVP race. As I said, do you make your teammates better? He makes his teammates better. He's developed an underrated tight end in Robert Tonyan. Davante Adams has 14 touchdowns on the year. He's arguably the best wide receiver in all of football. And then he's obviously making Marquez Valdes-Scantling better. He is making his team better, and he is really allowing for the success that this Green Bay Packers team has had all year. He's not throwing the ball to the other team. He's protecting the ball, and he's throwing a lot of touchdowns at a very high and efficient rate. So at the end of the day, I mean, this guy is number one in most of the efficiency categories. I mean, he's number one in true passer rating, number one in total QBR. He's number one in receiver target separation. He's leading his receiver to the ball. So at the end of the day, I mean, this guy is playing at a really, really high level. Sure, he has a good O-line, but so does Patrick Mahomes. They both have good O-lines. They both have good offenses, but Aaron Rodgers is really making his team better. Right now, if I had to flip a coin between Mahomes and Rodgers, I'd probably go with Rodgers just because age 37 and what he's been able to do is just unbelievable for anybody. But Mahomes is definitely still in it. Another guy that I want to talk about too is Derrick Henry. I mean, when we're talking about MVPs, we're talking about making your team better, and we're talking about being essential to your team's success. And that's exactly what Derrick Henry is. Not only does he have a 90.9 PFF player grade, but after last week's 200 rushing yard and 2 touchdown performance against Jacksonville, he set the NFL record with 4 career games with at least 200 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. He has 4 of them. Jim Brown, Barry Sanders, and LaDainian Tomlinson all have 3. So that just shows you what a player and the kind of player that Derrick Henry is. Let's just go based off pure stats right now. Right now, he's leading the league in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns with 1,500 rushing yards and 14 rushing touchdowns. But as I said, carrying your offense and carrying your team is something that an MVP really does. Yes, Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers do that, but Derrick Henry, that entire offense revolves around Derrick Henry. I mean, without a solid run game there in Tennessee, you would not see the efficiency and the success that Ryan Tannehill has had. You'd see Ryan Tannehill probably playing better than he did in Miami, but not by a lot. I mean, yes, in his 2016 season with J.J., he wasn't fantastic, but that year was really good for Tannehill. And you can see some of that similar success with a super solid and powerful and physical runner in Derrick Henry, allowing for him to have that red zone efficiency and that completion percentage and all that, because Derrick Henry is arguably the best running back in football. I mean, if we look at his stats compared to other running backs, you'll just see what I mean by that. Not only is he a physical and just punishing runner, but as I said, leads the league in rushing yards. He is number 2 in total touchdowns. Although he's not a true pass catcher, right, he's still doing a very good job as a fantasy running back too, if you guys are fantasy fans, but that doesn't give you the MVP. I mean, this guy is number 1 in carries. He's an absolute workhorse, number 3 in running plays per game, number 1 in red zone touches. I mean, he is getting opportunities, and he only is the 12th biggest snap share too, which is very interesting to see his production with the snap share that he gets. But because Tennessee is such a run-heavy offense based around Derrick Henry, he definitely warrants some consideration. He's been by far the best running back in the league this year. And although Dalvin Cook is in that similar conversation with him, I think Derrick Henry, if he got to 2,000 yards, I mean, he's only 450 rushing yards away. Right now, he's at 14 touchdowns, too. If he could get to 20 touchdowns on the year, then this guy is seriously in the MVP conversation. Right now, Mahomes and Rodgers are definitely the front runners. But Henry, I mean, if you add another 450 yards in 3 games, which is about 150 yards a game, and he's playing some really bad run defenses in the next few weeks, too. So that's definitely possible. Don't put that under the rug. Don't think that Derrick Henry won't get there. I mean, this guy is almost a lock for 1,800 rushing yards, and I'd say probably 17, maybe 16 or 17 rushing touchdowns. But if he could get to 2,020 rushing yards and rushing touchdowns, and this guy is seriously an MVP candidate. Right now, I think he's an MVP candidate too, just because of what he's been able to do for this Tennessee offense. Without him, this Tennessee team is not a playoff team. They're just not. I mean, their entire offense revolves around him. Their ability to throw the football effectively revolves around the strong running game they have that has been built by Derrick Henry. So with that said, I mean, Derrick Henry, if he can get to 2,000 rushing yards, the last running back to do that was in 2012 with Adrian Peterson's MVP season. And if Henry could even put up 20 touchdowns too, I mean, that's something that's reachable. That's within range. But I think 16, 17 touchdowns and 1,800 yards is probably where he'll end on the season. Is that good enough to be the MVP? I don't think so. But if you get to 2020, then I think he will probably have a better shot to win MVP. At the end of the day, though, quarterbacks normally win MVPs because quarterbacks are more essential to team success. They're your leader. They're your guys who diagnose the plays and make the plays with their arm and even with their legs, too. Mahomes and Rodgers are able to get out of the pocket and pick up yards on the run too. So I think these guys are the guys that are really in that MVP conversation. I love Mahomes, what he's done this year. I love what Rodgers has done this year. Love what Derrick Henry has done this year. But I think based on previous MVPs, it's probably going to be a quarterback this year. And if it had to be a quarterback, it's definitely a toss-up between Mahomes and Rodgers. Rodgers is probably playing at a higher level right now. But Mahomes still has the numbers. He's going to outthrow Rodgers, but I don't think he'll have the touchdown-interception ratio that will get Rodgers the MVP. So I think right now I'm going to have Rodgers winning the MVP this season, but definitely don't forget about Patrick Mahomes and don't look down on Derrick Henry. Also, by no means are these the only three guys that are going to have a chance to win the MVP. I mean, there's guys like Russell Wilson and Josh Allen who have had great seasons too. And don't forget about Dalvin Cook too. Those are guys that are definitely in that conversation. With that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. That's going to finish the video. If you guys have any video suggestions for me, anything you guys want to see, please feel free to drop that into the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please drop a like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow. I'd really appreciate it. And until next time, see ya.